Welcome to a detailed description of the functions and menus and operations of the Esm-100 electrical system monitor instrument by Adaptive Interfaces. The Esm-100 is a voltage and current monitor instrument for use in home-built and experimental aircraft. The instrument allows you to look at and monitor three different things. One, the system voltage or the battery voltage of the aircraft. Two, the system current or current of all the instruments and equipment on the airplane that normally would be powered off of the master switch of the aircraft. And also a battery charging current, which would be the current from the alternator going to the battery. What the instrument does is it allows you to see these currents and voltages, and also allows you to set alarm conditions so that if you have an overcurrent condition or a discharge condition for the battery or a low voltage condition in the aircraft, the instrument will flash at you and give you warning that you have some problems with your electrical system. The instrument has a couple of different features. One is it has an internal backlight which can be adjusted externally with an external control, and it can be dimmed to a point where it's turned off or brightened considerably, and that can be controlled by the pilot using a potentiometer or control on the instrument panel. Also, a separate control can be used to adjust the brightness of the display. Right now it's set for a front panel adjustment. Using the up and down arrows when it's in this normal operating mode will increase the brightness or decrease the brightness. There's also other ways of controlling the brightness, and we'll get into that next. The instrument is controlled by a series of menus and functions. Right now it's in a normal operating mode where it's displaying the battery voltage and either one of the two different currents. We can call this menu level 0 for reference. There are three other menu levels that can be entered into the instrument. To get to the first menu level, you hold in the function button. You press and hold in the function button for 5 seconds, and it will bring you up to menu level 1. So now we'll go through some of the functions on menu level 1. The first function is the brightness control function, and again this is the function that controls the brightness of the digital display and the LEDs. Right now it's set for front panel. That means that the instrument in normal operating mode is controlled with the up and down arrows to adjust the brightness. Now when we're in different menu functions, instead of adjusting the brightness, the up and down arrows are now used to select different parameters on the functions. And right now we have a front panel control for the brightness. Another function is a photocell control for the brightness, and we'll go ahead and enter that. What the instrument has is a little photocell on the front panel, and it can control the display brightness based on the ambient light. So if you're in a low light condition, the display will be dim. If you're in a bright light condition, the display will be much brighter. And the way we do that is we go through the different functions, we select the photocell, and to enter that we use the alarm button, which will be shown later to demonstrate alarm conditions for the instrument. Right now it's used as an enter button, so we'll use the enter button, which now sets the instrument for use with a photocell to control the brightness, and we'll kind of demonstrate that. To get back to the main menu and the main operating mode of the instrument, we go through the different functions until we have a return to main function, which is like a double return symbol. And to show how the photocell works, I'll go ahead and use a flashlight to increase the ambient light source, and you'll be able to see that the display, when it sees bright light, brightens up. And when the bright light goes away, it dims. And this would normally be for going from a evening condition into like a bright sunlight condition when you're flying. Let's go through some of the other methods of controlling the brightness. We'll hold the function key in for 5 seconds, get to menu level 1, and the other option for controlling the instrument brightness is E or external. And this would be controlled by an external voltage, which could be a potentiometer or a control on the instrument panel. So let's go ahead and do that. We'll enter that. Now we'll go back to the main menu, and right now you'll see that the up and down arrows don't have any function right now, but you can control the brightness externally, which is what I'm doing right now. So for the rest of the demonstration, I'm going to go ahead and put this thing back into the front panel control mode. Again, we go back into menu level 1, and we're in the brightness function. We set that to front panel. We select that by hitting the alarm button, and now we are in front panel control mode. Go back to the main menu, and we'll adjust this brightness so that it works best with the video camera, which is about 2 levels of brightness. Let's go back into the other menu levels and functions. Let's go back into menu level 1. The first function again was the front panel control function. Press the function button once again. You're in different. You advance to the different functions. This function here is the auto dim function. Right now it's turned to off. Basically, it's the options are either having it on or off. And the auto dim function, which I won't get into in total detail right now, is a way of controlling the brightness of the instrument when it is in a front panel control situation. It uses the photo sensor to automatically dim the instrument when it goes into a low light condition, or brighten the display on the instrument if it sees that it's in a high light condition. Once that is done, it basically just frees up the pilot so they don't have to be constantly adjusting the display brightness. But once it's been adjusted, you can still adjust it by using the up and down arrows. Next function is the update period. The instrument actually samples currents and voltages about 250 times a second, and those values sometimes tend to change a little bit. And if the instrument were to display each and every change, the digits on the instrument would be flickering back and forth to different numbers, which could be kind of distractive to a pilot. Therefore, the instrument is set up to update right now only once a second, so that as values change, you won't see the display flashing all over the place. And the update frequency, the default is 1 second, but it can actually go once every half a second, or if you don't want to be bothered by the display that much, you can actually increase it up to a 5-second period. So what we can do is, right now it's set for 1 second. Why don't we just go ahead and, to show how it works, I'll go ahead and enter a value of 1.5 seconds for the update frequency. Next function is the selection of the type of current sensor to be used for the first current sensor or the system current sensor. The instrument is designed to work with a standard 50 milliamp shunt. The shunt values can be anywhere from 10 to 100 amps. It's also designed to be used with a series of Hall effect current sensors. And the current sensors available with the instrument are 25 amps, 50 amps, and 100 amps. Right now, a Hall effect current sensor has been selected for use for the current sensor number 1. That can be changed to a current shunt if you wish. We'll just leave it as a sensor for right now. Next function is the selection of the type of sensor used for the battery current sensor, or sensor number 2. Right now it's selected as a shunt, or it could be changed to a Hall effect sensor. Depends upon what type of sensors you're using with the instrument. The last function on menu level 1 is a return to main or a return to menu level 0 function. We'll go ahead and do that, and that puts us back into the main operating mode of the instrument. To get to menu level 2, we go through the same process of going through the menus. First we have to go to menu level 1. You press the function button in and hold it for 5 seconds. We're now in menu level 1 and you see the functions that we just described. And from anywhere in menu level 1, if you press the function button and hold it in for 5 seconds, you get to menu level 2. So we'll now go through some of the functions of menu level 2. The first function is the selection of the value of a shunt if a shunt is being used for current sensor 1 or the system current. Right now it's set for a 50 amp shunt. It can be selected anywhere from 10 amps to 100 amps. And you can do that by using the up-down arrows. Say we want to have, we're using a 40 amp shunt. We can go ahead and select that by hitting the alarm, or in this case the enter button. Now the shunt is selected as a 40 amp shunt, so when 40 amps is going through the shunt it'll have a full value of 50 millivolts, and that's what the instrument measures. Next function is the selection of a shunt for the battery if we're using a shunt. Right now it's set for a 20 amp shunt. We'll go ahead and keep it there. Next function is the type of Hall effect sensor used if the instrument's being used with a Hall effect sensor. And we have a selection of either a 100 amp sensor, a 25 amp sensor, or a 50 amp sensor. And we'll just go ahead and keep it as a 100 amp sensor. Go on to the next function. A 25 amp Hall effect sensor has been selected for use with the battery. Again, the instrument can be switched to either using a Hall effect sensor or a shunt, and the menu simply allows you to select what type of sensor or what type of a shunt that you're going to be using if you're using that particular type. Next function, or the next three functions, are alarm levels. Right now, this function here is the voltage alarm level. Right now it's set for 11 volts. It can be changed in half-volt increments all the way up to 30 volts, or 28 volts, excuse me, and down to 9 volts. And we'll go ahead and leave it 11 volts just to show you that it can be changed to different levels. And when the alarm is set at 11 volts, a battery or system voltage that drops below 11 volts will cause the instrument to go into an alarm condition, which we'll demonstrate later. And if the voltage drops below that, it will flash the voltage display and also output a value out the back of the instrument to drive either a buzzer or a warning light or something like that. The next function is a current function, or a current alarm level for the system current sensor. Right now it's turned off, but it can be selected in half amp increments, anywhere from 0. If we go back down through the functions, it can go all the way from 0 to 30 amperes. And in this case, if the system current exceeds the value entered in as the alarm value, the instrument will go into like an overcurrent alarm situation. We'll go ahead and just leave it off. Next function is the battery alarm level, and if it's turned on and set to a value such as, say 4.5 amps, if the battery charging current exceeds 4.5 amps, the instrument will show an alarm condition. Also, if it shows a negative current, in other words, the battery is discharging through the alternator, which would indicate that the alternator is not working and not charging the battery, that will also set an alarm condition. But again, we'll just go ahead for right now. It gets very distracting using this alarm, so we'll just go ahead and leave it off. The next function is a return one level function, and this is sort of like a single return symbol. If you press this, it'll bring you back to menu level 1. Let's go back to menu level 2. We'll do that by pressing the function button and holding it in. We can step through the different functions again, show you what they are. One of the other functions is a return to main or the double return function, and this function always brings you back to menu level 0 or the standard operating mode of the instrument. Let's go up to menu level 3, which is a calibration point menu. And this is a level that we don't encourage anybody other than somebody, a trained technician, to use, because what you're going to be doing is calibrating different, setting up the calibration of the instrument. Right now we're in menu level 1. Let's press the function button, hold it in for 5 seconds. We're in level 2. These are the functions we just went over. Press and hold the function button again. We are now in level 3. And this is the menu that allows you to enter calibration data points for the instrument. The first set of calibration points is for the voltmeter. And the calibration data points can be set at 10 volts and at 20 volts. And this will set up and calibrate the voltmeter inside the instrument. Again, if you don't have a precise voltage source, it's suggested that you don't mess with this calibration menu at all. But it is available if you need to use it. The next set of calibration data points is for the first set of current sensors. The first point is if you're using a Hall effect sensor. The Hall effect sensor actually provides a voltage when there is 0 current, and that voltage may change a little bit from sensor to sensor, so you're allowed to use the sensor and set a 0 volt reference point on the instrument so that it zeroes out the current when there isn't any current flowing. Next data point is a 0 point for a current shunt. And there is a positive 50 millivolt point for a shunt that can be set, and a negative 50 millivolt point for a shunt that can be set. And again, we can kind of go through the different functions by hitting the up and down arrow. If you actually want to set that data point, you have to have a calibration instrument on the gauge and then use your alarm or enter button for that. And for current sensor 2, we have the same set of data points. The first data point being the 0 point for the Hall effect current sensor, the next point being a 0 point for a shunt type sensor, a positive 50 millivolt point for the shunt, and a negative 50 millivolt point for the shunt. And the next two functions are a return one level function. This will bring you back to menu levels 2 and those sets of functions, and a return to main or main operating mode of the instrument. Let's just go ahead and go back to the main operating mode of the instrument. And what we'll do for the last thing is demonstrate an alarm condition for the instrument. In this case, I can control the voltage going to the instrument between a battery voltage of 14 volts and 10 volts. 10 volts will put the instrument into an alarm condition, and we'll see what happens when that starts. We're now at 10 volts. Unfortunately, there is a timer in the instrument, so that the instrument has to wait 2 minutes before it goes into an alarm condition. So we'll stop the tape and show what happens after 2 minutes, and we'll get back to the demonstration. We are now in the alarm condition for voltage. It's been about 2 minutes since the voltage was set for 10 volts. And you can see what the instrument does when it is in an alarm condition. In this case, the voltage has dropped below 11 volts. And what the instrument does to notify the pilot that there is an electrical problem is it will flash, it will brighten the instrument, and it will flash the problem area, in which case this is the voltage. It's saying that there's a voltage problem and that you need to look at check out what's going on in the aircraft and be aware that you have a potential problem condition. In order to turn off this alarm condition, you use, in the normal operating mode of the instrument, the alarm button. And by pressing this, you turn off your alarm condition, and what it will do is it will stay off for 2 minutes. But again, after 2 minutes, if an alarm condition still exists, the instrument will go back to flashing and indicating an alarm. Basically, the 2 minutes just gives you some time to work out your problems and not be distracted by the instrument. But again, we want the instrument to do its job and let you know that you do have a potential electrical problem. If the alarm condition goes away, if we go back to a normal voltage, the instrument should operate perfectly, and you can just go on your way. That's about it for the demonstration of the ESM-100.